All right, welcome in. Cube Show Podcast, college football podcast that comes to you on Sundays. We're back with you on a Sunday. Today is Father's Day, so pretty cool to be able to spend some time with you guys today. And I remember what we did a year ago, and that was we asked you, what was your favorite college football memory with your dad? And we shared a couple of those tweets. There were some more that came in that we didn't get to, and we kind of shared it again and got some new ones. I want to share a couple of those. First off, happy Father's Day to all you out there that are dads, and hope you take advantage of that, do a good job with that. But one reason I wanted to bring that back was something that happened to me recently. I've actually shared the story here, but give you a little bit more insight to it. Also, the SEC football TV times, to an extent, have been released for the rest of the year. Did the show in Charlotte with Roman and Alyssa. Thought it was fun, went great. And it just gives you an idea how many games are going to be jammed into certain Saturdays and hopefully be spread out a little bit more. So we're going to have windows to be able to watch all those games. Also, I told you we were going to get back to our spring reviews. We're going to do LSU today. Talk about this LSU football team, what happened during spring, what they liked, what they didn't like, and then maybe get an idea what that team's going to look like coming up this fall. So we're going to try to jam a lot in today as we're back to somewhat of a normal schedule. You've got the UFL championship game today at 4, Birmingham against San Antonio. I think it could be a good game, actually, because Adrian Martinez hadn't really been seeing things well for Birmingham. Matt Corral comes in, former Ole Miss quarterback last week, and he helps Birmingham get the win. Offense and defensive line for San Antonio playing really well right now. That's going to be a bit of an issue for Birmingham. But Skip Holtz, he's been on a roll, so we'll see. San Antonio, the only team to get Birmingham this year. We're brought to you by Wickles Pickles, wickedly delicious. Always check them out in your grocery store. Go to Instagram at Wickles Pickles. They've got recipes there that you can use them. We snack on them. We love them here in our house. Anytime we have people over, we get them out and try to let people know what they're all about. So we appreciate Wickles sponsoring the show. Let's do Father's Day first, since that is today. A little bit different for me. I told you guys the Iron Bowl last year that I was able to actually go to the game with my wife and my kids. Now, they all came to the Texas A&M game the year before at Auburn, but I had to work. So that was kind of cool to get them on the field. We've done that actually for the last 2 UFL games here in Birmingham, which is always great. It's awesome to have them around. They get to see a little bit of what I do. They're at the game, see them after the game. It's always fun. But this Iron Bowl is different because that was the first college football game that I had gone to as a dad with my kids and like no work duties. I mean, I went and did like a hit on Nation before the game, but I didn't have to work. We just got to enjoy it. And it was just an unbelievable experience. And it made me appreciate a lot of these stories that were sent in by a lot of you that listen to the show. Like Big Game Boomer sent in, driving down to Tallahassee in 2000, watching Florida State beat Clemson by 47, absolute beatdown. Clark Brooks, if you don't know him, SEC_StatCat. He does a great job with SEC numbers for On3. Moments before the Bluegrass Miracle, when I was begging him to go down and rush the field, he told me no because UK was about to lose. Well, I mean, how incredible is that? Like, you never forget that. You got to do that with your dad also. Scooby Wright tweeted in, hate that we're not going to see him in a Stallions uniform today, by the way. My favorite memory is 2014, Arizona versus Cal. Fans were storming the field after a wild ending. My pops was waiting for me in the locker room to celebrate. I mean, how great is that? And as players, actually, we don't get to see our dads like that often. I used to always see my dad at Tiger Walk, and then he would wait for me after the game. But there's not a lot of times that are kind of, jammed right in there that we really get to see them. Joe Prinza tweets in, 1:30 p.m. on the Saturday, December 1st, 2007, Metro Atlanta. Just got in from spreading pine straw. Vols snuck into the SEC championship game due to a Georgia loss late in the year. Ton of tickets on Craigslist. Dad gets to, quote, if we're going to the game, we are leaving in 5 minutes. Took the fastest shower of my life. Rushed to Atlanta, our 2 seats, got in there 2 minutes before kickoff. We lost, but we got in there, and it was an amazing day, amazing dad. Some of those surprise trips, man, are just the absolute best. When you don't see it coming and, like, you don't expect it. Karen Keelargo tweets in, Army, Navy every year, beat Navy. Like that. How about that tradition? Like you and your dad go to Army, Navy every year? I mean, that would be pretty cool. And a lot of these came in that I thought were pretty special, were pretty neat. And I mean, some of you guys sent pictures in. If you want to go check it out at Mac and Cube, we'll leave that posted at the top of the Twitter feed, so you can go check some of those out. But like, just unbelievable stories. Like Michael Morgan tweets in, my favorite memory was listening to the Kentucky-South Carolina game when Randall Cobb made the catch. We intercepted the ball in the end zone to beat Steve Spurrier for the first time in history. Like, you'll never forget that. So we go to the Iron Bowl this year and had my kids down on the sideline. And I think I've told the story here. If not, I've told it publicly other places, that on the last play of the game, I actually went over to my daughter and I said, hey, I want you guys, and my son. I think at that time, 3-year-old was running around in the grass. My wife was chasing him because I'd go to the field and watch the play and then come back. They're on top of those like cargo crates down there. And I'm going to show you a picture of both of them, but specifically my son. He found that orange wig in the condo we were staying at, and like he felt like he had to wear it the whole day. And the pull apart region sign that said War Eagle, I guess he just thought that was something he had to have at the game because he never put it down. Like the entire game he had it. But I'll go over there and I said, hey, I want you guys to actually watch the football. Like, don't watch Albie, don't watch the Jumbotron, don't watch anything, because you're never going to forget this day as long as you live. I think we all know what happened next. And I'm up at the field. I see it. I kind of wait a second, hoping for that incomplete sign. Didn't happen. And I turn around and daughter just ugly crying. And she's like, you said you never forget this day. And I just said, this was your first Auburn game with your dad. Like, that's what you need to remember. You'll never forget that. I'll never forget this. I've had an awesome day. Like, nothing's going to ruin this day. Because basically I saw my kids kind of fall in love with Auburn football that day. That was the big takeaway for me. And in a lot of these stories that you guys have shared, essentially, yeah, you remember that play in the game or the outcome of that game. But if you were younger in some of those stories, that's probably when you fell in love with that team. That's probably when you said, all right, this is my team forever, or I love this team more than anything. So that's why I think it's cool. And then having your dad there to do it, like my dad's, his company had tickets to like Alabama and Georgia games. And he took me to a couple Alabama, Georgia games, like a couple Georgia Auburn games. We went to the Alabama La Tech game at Legion Field in 1992. I want to say it was like 17-7 or something. Like, it was a close game. And Chris Donnelly intercepted a pass and took it back late. And that was kind of why Alabama won that game. They'd go on to win a national championship. There wasn't a ton of people there. He took me to a couple Iron Bowls, but my dad went to South Carolina. My aunt played basketball at Clemson. So when I was little, I went to some Carolina Clemson games, and that was always awesome because if it was in Carolina, like my dad's brother, he went to South Carolina, so they'd be ribbing my aunt. And I actually remember going to the Carolina Clemson game in Clemson when my aunt played basketball at Clemson, or maybe it was right when she got done. And William the Refrigerator Perry was there. They had this big life-size poster. And either my dad or my uncle took this Gamecock round, like circle sticker, and put it on his mouth on the side of this RV that they were like tailgating at. And my aunt just lost it. Like, she went nuts. And so I grew up around a rivalry, and I knew it was different than Auburn, Alabama. But I remember going to those games. I remember seeing the mascots. I remember the bands and just like that pageantry. I remember falling in love with that pretty early because it was incredible. So keep those coming in. I love reading them. Again, I thought it would be cool. So this is, if you're wondering kind of why it meant so much to me, other than just the fact that I played at Auburn, graduated from Auburn, my wife graduated from Auburn, like in one of the TV timeouts, like this is what I see during the break. So you can just imagine like how incredible that was at that time, and just how much fun it was to be able to see that. And like watching it again, it just makes me smile, man. It's really cool. All right. You guys know we're also brought to you by Blue Delta Jeans, the most comfortable denim you'll ever put on. Premium denim, stretchy, flexible. You can dress them up, dress them down. Go to bluedeltajeans.com. They can fit you digitally now. Yes, today is Father's Day. I imagine you can probably go grab a gift certificate real quick and get it over to the husband if you need to, or your dad. But you guys know how much I think about Blue Delta Jeans. They're incredible. I love them. Go get you a pair now at bluedeltajeans.com. Tell Nick and the guys you heard about them right here on Cube Show. All right, at Cube Show. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, please click subscribe. We're right there knocking on the door of 10,000, trying to get there. Haven't been able to get over the hump. I did want to say this before I go into the TV schedule. I saw some of your comments last week. We tried to change it up a little bit, and I understand there were some of you that were a little bit sort of stay in your lane. I get that. I understand that. We'll go back to that a little bit today. But we're still going to try to have some fun, do some different things every now and then. All right, TV schedule out. I'm going to blast through these pretty quick. Not the whole thing and not everything that's taking place, but like a takeaway or two that I had from each team's TV schedule that's going to be coming up for the rest of the season. All right, Alabama, first and foremost, only 2 morning kicks. You guys have been complaining about that for years. I do radio in Birmingham. I've heard you calling in. I've heard how angry you've been about it. You only have 2 morning kicks the entire season. However, possibly at Tennessee and at LSU at night. That's brutal. That's not going to be easy. You possibly are also playing in Norman at night the week before the Iron Bowl, which we know that's a little weird part of the schedule there. Oklahoma the week before the Iron Bowl, but that one is one that could be just a little bit tricky. Arkansas, 4 morning kicks. Ugh, nobody likes to see that. Now you get Texas and Ole Miss at home that are morning kicks. So that's like a double dagger because that's where you need Razorback Stadium to be on tilt to be able to help you get those games. And they're both late too. So you hate to see that because those are games in which you're probably going to need the crowd to be able to find a way to win, and you're going to get them in the morning. Auburn, first morning kick, October the 19th. So your afternoon at night until mid-October. I think that's great. You get Cal in the afternoon, which, yeah, it's going to be hot for the fans. I get that. But you got a team coming in from California. Like, you want it as miserable as possible for them. That's great. Now, you could also get Kentucky, Alabama, and Georgia on the road at night. Those are flex games. So flex kick basically means you're not playing in the morning. It's going to be an afternoon or a night kick, and they're going to wait to tell you what network it's on, but you know it's not going to be in the morning. All right, so Florida. It's just the flex schedule. Florida schedule, we know it. Everybody says how impossible it is and how difficult it's going to be. At Tennessee, Kentucky, LSU is a flex, but then early at Texas and at Ole Miss. So I don't like having that Ole Miss game in the morning. Like, you want that stadium to be able to help you get that game, especially late when you could possibly ruin the Ole Miss season or chance to get in the playoffs. Now, going to Texas in the morning benefits you just a little bit. Georgia, all 4 road games in conference could be at night. Like that. That's a little bit tricky. You could possibly have 8 games at night if you're the Georgia Bulldogs. Hey, when you're the big dog, they're putting you in prime time. When you're the main attraction, that's where your games are going to be. So it's no super surprise there. Kentucky, possibly Georgia, Vandy, Auburn, and Louisville at home at night, which is great because those are some games you won't be favored in, and some games, obviously a rivalry game, some games that you're going to need. You could potentially get them at night. At Ole Miss is going to be an early kick. That's good. I think it benefits you to play early on the road. Take a little bit of the crowd out of it. My theory's always been when you travel, your schedule is going to change anyway. So if you're getting up early to go play a morning game, it doesn't matter. You're not sitting in your apartment and going to the hotel you go to for all your home games. You don't have as many people around. It's all different anyway. So why not? I just always think it benefits the road team a little bit. It helps the road team a little bit more than if it were later in the day. But you'll possibly get at Texas, Florida, Tennessee at night. Yee. Don't want that. Brutal. LSU, possible 10 night games. Unbelievable. That's when they like to play. That's when they want to play. That's what they're going to get. And they got some headlining games that are going to be there. I mean, you play USC, you play UCLA. I mean, you got some big non-con games there. So you're going to get a bunch of them at night. Now, you are also at South Carolina in the morning, which is great because Willie B gets rocking at night, and that place will be just a little bit different. Ole Miss did not like the draw for a team that's supposed to be in the playoffs this year. 4 early conference kickoffs. Kentucky, Oklahoma. You look at those being at home. I don't like the fact that you're going to have to play those in the morning. Kentucky, that first conference game after a pretty easy walk into the season. At LSU bye week, and then you'll play Oklahoma in the morning again, and then go to Arkansas to play in the morning. At Florida in the morning. So, yeah, 2 of those on the road, but still, I don't like all those early kicks across the course of the season for Ole Miss. Now, Most likely you're going to get Georgia at home at night. That's a flex. I think you'll get that there. So, I mean, I think that could be a big advantage. So I just didn't like the early kicks. You got a bunch of flex games on there that could work against you. Obviously at LSU and at South Carolina, tough places to play at night. But either way, none of these are going to be easy. Mississippi State, that Arizona 9:30 Central kick, man, that is going to be absolutely brutal. Good news is you'll get Toledo at night the next week, so that helps a little bit. Florida and Arkansas at home early kicks, don't like it. Not sure who's going to be favored in that Mississippi State-Arkansas game. I assume Florida will be favored. Those are games that they have a chance to win, and you're not going to be able to take advantage of Davis Wade when it's at full capacity, probably because you're playing those games early. When I say capacity, I don't mean people in the stands. I mean capacity of like what the stadium can be, and that just never happens in the morning. Missouri, Boston College early at home, Auburn at home early, but you possibly only have one road night game, which is fantastic. So they walk into the season, BC at home early. Got to be careful there. Don't sleepwalk into that game. But there's not a definitive night game set up on the road right now. Tennessee, other than Tennessee. So Ole Miss could be afternoon. Georgia could be afternoon. Texas is afternoon. So, that could be, A&M's neutral site morning kick. You got Arkansas as a flex, South Carolina afternoon, Mississippi State afternoon. So that Buffalo game is going to be at night, but you have no other definitive night games other than the Murray State opener. So that's good for Missouri. Oklahoma, you get that Tennessee times a flex. Already we know it's probably going to go tonight. I got people in Oklahoma saying it's the biggest regular season game in school history. I don't know if I'd go that far, but even if Oklahoma people are talking about it like that, you know what that game is going to be. You avoid the night game at Jordan-Hare, even though it's afternoon. That place will be rocking. You get South Carolina early at home, though. At Ole Miss early. At Missouri is going to be a flex, so the flex window late. At Missouri, week off. Bama at home. At LSU, all flex. So those could all be at night, which could be a little bit dangerous. South Carolina, we mentioned that LSU game at home early. You just don't want that. At Alabama and Oklahoma early. Okay, maybe that helps you a little bit. A&M is possibly the only home night game, which is just wild to think about. Ole Miss is a flex. That could be afternoon. You've got Missouri is afternoon, Wofford afternoon. LSU's a morning kick. So not a ton of times that you're going to be able to take advantage of Willie B being at night for South Carolina this year. That's the part I didn't like about that one. For Tennessee, again, flex that Oklahoma game. I mean, that's ridiculous. Tennessee really is kind of just the entire flex schedule. So you're at Oklahoma, at Arkansas, Florida, Alabama, which those are back to back to back, all flex. At Georgia, flex. So a lot of those are probably going to be at night. You're at Vanderbilt in the morning. So not that it really matters, but that helps you just a little bit. Mississippi State at home at night, Kentucky at home at night. That's great. Anyone will be on tilt for those. So could kind of go either way there. Texas gets the early kick at Michigan. You get Florida at home early, but I mean, that's later in the season. I don't know if that one really matters. That Georgia game is probably going to be at night at home. That's a flex right now. So that's great for Texas A&M. Possibility of at Mississippi State, at South Carolina, and at Auburn at night. So that's tough, man. Like that's brutal to have to play that many road games at night. Your schedule when you're coming back, when you get home, it makes it just a little bit different. But I mean, obviously the Texas A&M game's a flex right now. I don't see how that game's not at night. And then for Vanderbilt, you get Virginia Tech at home in the morning to start the season. Like you probably want that one to be just a little bit later. Only 3 morning kicks as of right now, though. So that's a plus. Usually getting a lot more of those. At Auburn in the morning, they could be sleeping there. That one could help you just a little bit. So just a couple notes kind of on where I saw the TV times and some of those different teams as far as the schedule goes, because listen, I think some of that stuff makes a difference. Is it going to make all the difference? Is it always going to be that way? No, it's not. But I do think you have an opportunity to look at it and say that could be a little bit of a reason of why something happens, and there's some advantages, disadvantages that come with it. All right, so we'll roll in now to our LSU spring review. As you know, this is a team that has a lot of talent that's going to leave. A lot of guys going to be gone. You lose a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, 2 first-round receivers, a tailback that was pretty good, wasn't utilized a ton, but is also gone. Your 3 best defensive linemen are going to be gone. You had the NFL talent up front on defense last year that's not back, and your defense was bad. Your offensive coordinator is gone. So there's a lot to replace, but watching that spring game back again, which I did over the weekend, there are a couple of things I think people are sleeping on. I think collectively the receiver group still going to be better than people think. I know it's gone, but people sometimes just focus on what's gone and maybe not what's coming back. I also think the running back position is in a little bit better hands than some people might believe. I don't know if that's going to be, hey, game breaker, give the ball 35 times, rush for 2,000 yards guy, but I think they're going to be fine there. And then defensively, you saw in that spring game, pressures, stunts, movement. Blake Baker's mentality, I think, is going to maybe allow for some guys to play faster, to think less, not sit back and zone, and potentially take advantage of a new attitude, so to speak, that'll help guys play in a little bit of a different way. So let's just start offensively. That's another thing I think in the spring game, too. Like, people just forget the arm that Nussmeier has. Also, the movement. Like the one touchdown down the field where I think it was Chris Hilton that was wide open. He's rolling up in the pocket, and then it's like last second, boom, just get rid of ball, and it's 40, 45 yards down the field. He has that kind of ability on the move to be able to make those kind of throws. And I think that's one thing that when you hear how spring went, they were happy with the receiver group. They liked the receiver group. Chris Hilton, Kyron Lacy were the 2 that got a lot of the focus and the emphasis, as they should. Kyron Lacy is an alien. I mean, he's unbelievable. He's going to have a monster year. But Chris Hilton can do a lot of different things, as can C.J. Daniels, 6'2", 200 from Liberty. I watched his film. He'll go over the middle. He'll challenge you down the field. He's a little bit of a catch-and-run guy. Maybe not the Malik Neighbors catch-and-run guy, but he's a solid catch-and-run wide receiver. So he can be a little bit of your utility player at wide receiver. And then you bring in Xavier Thomas from Mississippi State, who's kind of your true slot. He'll help you in the return game. But for your shorter intermediate stuff and maybe your screen game, he's a guy who can really help you. And then Shelton Sampson's your 6'4", tall, 50-50 guy down the field that I think has a chance to maybe bust out a little bit, sprinter speed, and can be somebody who's at least used for one area, and that is just getting down the field and challenging guys north and south. But Daniels, 55 for 1,067 last year, 10 touchdowns. A lot of production, a lot of juice. I think he's a guy that has a good year as well. But I think we focus on what's gone with these receivers and maybe not collectively what's there. That group's going to be fine. I think it's going to be a really good group. Also through spring, you hear the conversations about Nussmeier. He's got the locker room. He's got the swag. He's got the guys on his side. He's somebody that I think kids want to play with and want to be around. That's all great. There's also an understanding that there's a little bit of risk that comes with his reward. He has that gunslinger mentality. He thinks he can fit the ball in every window, and there ain't a deep ball on earth he don't like. Sometimes those can be a little underthrown, a little bit too much air under them. He's going to take those chances. But I do think that Brian Kelly and Joe Sloan know going in, that's a part of what they have. I would expect the tight ends to be involved just a little bit more. Like I said with Xavier Thomas in the screen game, maybe screen game be an extension of that a little bit more to help things stay higher percentage to offset some of the risks that you just know your quarterback's going to take. If that's the case, that's fine because you'll have a decent run game to lean on because the offensive line is going to be great. You'll move him some. He can tuck it and run at times. And then so you'll get an interception or two every couple games. All right, that's fine. You get an incompletion every now and then. That's cool. We also have these other playmakers that from a high percentage standpoint are going to get the ball in their hands and potentially be able to go make plays. So I think that the receiver position is going to be fine. Quarterback after Nuss, I don't really know, man. Ricky Collins, a kid from Woodlawn, good athlete, good arm, had some nice runs, saw him do some good things, but don't know if he took the number 2 spot. AJ Swan, you saw his inconsistencies in the actual spring game. And my understanding is he didn't really wow a lot of people on that LSU staff during spring. There were times that I really liked what he did at Vanderbilt. But you at least bring a guy in that has conference experience, has played the position, understands speed of the game, and from an emergency standpoint, probably a much better place to go than a true freshman super athlete in high school that is still kind of learning the technical and fundamental aspects of the position. So you got Colin Hurley, who came in, January enrollee, that has been a pleasant surprise. I just don't see him really being able to push for the number 2 spot. That battle will continue, but you have to think that it's probably going to be Collins or Swan. Either way, there's going to be a big drop. And I actually think that there are more schools that are in really good position from their entire quarterback room, their quarterback depth in the league this year than a lot of other years. But LSU is not going to be one of those teams this year. But Nuss is pretty tough too, man. You see him take some big hits and kind of pop back up and just be okay. The running backs that we mentioned, like Josh Williams, is just super solid. He's big and physical. He's downhill, but he's not afraid to throw a block. He's not afraid of contact. He's got a tad bit more wiggle than people think. But Caleb Jackson's the one, I think if you're an LSU fan, you're kind of hoping he breaks out. Like you're kind of hoping like this is the dude. I mean, the truck stick at Mississippi State last year is one that I think I'll always remember. But he has that kind of dynamic ability. Keep in mind, didn't play football senior year in high school, so still kind of learning the actual game and the position a little bit. There's a possibility he has a monster year because the offensive line is going to be great. And then John Emery comes back out of the portal. If you can keep him around, he can help you a little bit. Malachi Lane was out there in spring ball, in the spring game, had some issues in protection, breaking down a little bit. But for me, I think it's Caleb Jackson and Josh Williams. If John Emery is in line and keeping everything together, can he help you at times? Probably. Yes. Be good to have the depth there. I mean, hell, last year had too many running backs. This year, you still want to make sure you have enough depth, and you might lean on that position a little bit more just because of everything that's new with Coach Sloan. Keep in mind, he's not a veteran play caller. And to make the jump to calling plays at LSU, it's a little bit different, man. That's a different deal. I have confidence that he can do it. I love the guys that he's been around. I mean, Skip Holtz has an offense that I think should always be successful in college. The way that they read it, the way that they manage it. So coming from that tree, I think it should be one that operates well and should be quarterback friendly. It's still LSU, and it's the SEC, and it's a different SEC. But I also think the tight end position is one that's going to help. Like Mason Taylor's fantastic. Like he's got a chance to be one of the best in the nation. Saw him do some different things in the spring game. But I also think that room with Mac Markway, a guy that's a little bit more of your inline tight end that can help you there. And then this Cameron Pimpton kid, who was a little dinged up in the spring game a couple of times, but like athleticism, he's exactly what you want in sort of that flex tight end position. Move him around, get a mismatch, throw him a couple jump balls, run past some people. And then this Trey Green, true freshman, there are high hopes that he can come in and potentially be able to help a little bit, if not a lot. So that room's going to be strong. So you put a strong offensive line with a good tight end group, quarterback that's been around for a while, has a veteran presence, still good receiver room. Maybe there's more 12. Maybe there's more smash mouth football involved. I mean, I asked Denbrock last year, I love the offensive line. I love Diggs when he's going downhill. Like, why are we not running the ball more? And he just kind of laughed and said, I probably should be calling it. But, I mean, look who we got. Good point. Run the zone read or tell your quarterback if they try to play, zone and they're bailing, or if they don't keep a spy on you, just tuck it and go. That worked pretty well. So can't really blame him for doing that. The offensive line is going to be strong. Campbell and Jones, probably best tackle tandem in the nation. I don't know if you could definitively say there's another that's absolutely better. Dellinger's played a ton of football. Miles Frazier's played a lot of football. Miles Frazier was bullying guys in some gap scheme runs in the spring game as well. That's one thing I really liked about what I saw from this group in the spring game, were the gap scheme runs. Guys pulling, kicking out, backs having patience, and then getting north and south behind them. The physicality that came with that I really liked, and it shows the mobility of some of these guys as well. So DJ Chester will be in at center. Played a little bit last year. You lose last year's starting center, but I don't know if it's that big of a drop-off. So Marlon Martinez gone. Zalance Hurd's gone. Charles Turner's gone. You're okay there. I mean, Hurd filled in in the Army game? So, I mean, yeah, he's a big-time prospect, but you got two of the best tackles in college football. You're going to be okay. This group should offer protection. They should be able to move people. And with bigger backs and a good tight end group, the run game should be strong. The other part of the run game for LSU to think about this year, go through the defensive lines in the SEC. And we're used to calling out like 2 MFers on every group, at least 1, sometimes 3. When you get to teams like Auburn and Arkansas and Mississippi State and Florida, like they usually have dudes. And there's not a ton of them this year in the league. Like, this is not one of the better interior defensive lineman years in this league. Could it be easier to play sort of ground and pound, have success running the football because we don't have as much of that in the league this year? Possibly. And if it is, it's going to play right into LSU's hand. Hell, the team we're about to talk about on defense here is one of those teams that doesn't have one of those guys that normally has a handful of those guys. So I just think that you're going to take a lot of the zone read stuff away, a lot of the direct quarterback run stuff away. That's going to go to the backs. You're going to have some different personnel groupings, but it all kind of fits to where it wants to go. And when I hear people telling me that Brian Kelly has referenced his offensive line as great multiple times this offseason, means he really likes what that group has done and really likes what they're capable of. Not a lot of coaches are going to step out on their offensive lines like that because it's such a tough position to keep your guys around, have continuity. It's one thing for a group to grow during a season. It's another thing to go into a season and think that group just is going to be great like that. It doesn't happen a whole lot with today's college football and today's offensive lines. Feels like LSU has that, and they're going to have an opportunity to maybe be able to go up and do some different things. And then you got, like I said, some of the young guys like Green at tight end. He's like a bigger Mason Taylor, super athletic. So we'll see if even some of the young guys come in and potentially can help a little bit. You might be able to get that offense really humming this season because they have the ability. It's just kind of coming together and figuring out exactly what the strengths are going to be. Defensively, yeah, it's a little bit different. Defense wasn't good last year, but I do think Blake Baker can come in with how he calls things, what he calls, the way that he asks guys to do it. It just gets the juices flowing a little bit more. You're not striking and shedding as much. You're not stationary as much. You're not just sitting there playing your guy. A lot of it is just friggin' attack mode, man. Like go get, slant, like picks on twists. I mean, that's something that can even be fun. Like you get to knock the hell out of a guard or a tackle. You get to ear hole him and he's not looking for you coming, even though you might not be the guy that's going to go get the sack. He gets that kind of stuff going into his guys. So I think when you think about that, taking a little bit of a step, his other position coaching, along with Corey Webster still being there and Bo Davis coming in to coach the defensive line. So now they'll get some real coaching. You're not having to move as many coaches around to try to do different things like they have for the last year and a half. The Bo Davis get's going to be huge. Like technically and fundamentally, he's as good as it gets, and he demands a lot out of his players. The problem will be he doesn't have a lot of numbers to even play with. So you go to the D tackles, Jacoby and Guillory. He can probably help you. He can be a good SEC defensive lineman. Taking over games? No, not going to happen. All right, so Jalen Lee comes in, right? Been at Florida before. He's going to come in and play. This kid's played 4 years of college football and hadn't given you a lot of production. Sorry if I'm not hanging my hat on him to be a dominant defensive lineman in this league. Gio Paz that you see coming in from Wisconsin, I've watched his film. I went back and watched him. Like he's pretty heavy-handed. Once he gets on you and gets his hands on you, he can be a handful, but he doesn't have a lot of twitch. He doesn't have a lot of, his lateral movement's not even good. He's a big physical body inside that can take up some blocks for you at times. Like that's kind of what he's meant to do. So then you get Shone Washington, who comes in, who I believe is from Grand Valley State. I've actually found some film on him and I watched it. Very difficult analysis because I don't know what he's going up against. It did look like a bunch of micro machines at offensive line, but he's got a good motor. He's got good quicks, chases the ball down. I saw him out on the sidelines on a couple of different plays. I don't know what we're going to get from him, but I'll say this. The kid plays hard. He's not a huge body, but if you're looking for somebody to shoot gaps and penetrate and disrupt, he might be able to help you. So also Dominic McKinley, the freshman, has got to come in and get some reps. He's got to get some snaps. And I'm going to sit here. I'll be lying to you if I told you what I think he might even be able to offer at all, because I don't know about high school kids coming in. Sorry, I just don't. We got other people for that. But the bottom line is the numbers are low. The game records are few and far in between, but you're going to have to find a way to create some stuff. And this defense is sort of built to do that. So that might be able to help. Savion Jones looked great in the spring game. Long, good pass rusher. I thought Paris Shan did some good things off the edge in the spring game as well. Showed some good pass rush moves. I like his lengths. He's got that long wingspan. And then Gabe Relaford was there too off the edge. So I think you got a couple of guys with good length that are going to be able to rush, be able to get to the quarterback. Then the Jack linebacker, Braden Swinson, Deshaun Womack. Those two, I don't know if they're going to be super twitched up, but I think they can be solid. And I think that's what you kind of lean on there. And you take Harold Perkins and you move him back to will linebacker. This defense is predicated on building pressure. Don't think for 1 second that whatever pressures involve the will linebacker are going to move to the top of the list to allow Harold Perkins to disrupt. That's going to happen. He's going to be a factor. And I think they're going to make sure they put him in spots where he's a little bit more comfortable. The bottom line was when you saw him at the line of scrimmage and it wasn't 3rd and 10, tee off, dip and rip, spin move, swim, rip back inside, whatever, he wasn't very effective. It was pretty apparent he didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be playing that. That wasn't his strength. So put him off the ball where he can run around and make some plays. All right. And then you use him in pressure situations. They'll give him more linebacker run-throughs, even on rundowns, and he'll be able to cause problems. And that's all you want from him. Like, let your best football player go out there and cause problems. And if you're doing that, good things are going to happen. You're going to find ways to make play. Greg Penn, solid. Whit Weeks, solid. Wes Weeks maybe help you out just a little bit. I don't think the linebacker position is overly fast. I also don't think that it is overly deep. But you got a couple of guys that are going to be able to help you, especially the first few. And I think it's going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be a big strength of the team. I don't think it's going to be an Achilles heel of the team. But I do think that it's somewhere right there in the middle. But once again, if you're asking guys to attack a lot of the times, all you got to do is get them playing hard, knowing where to go, and you'll cause some problems. Secondary, that's a little bit more interesting because now some guys have moved around. So you're probably looking at a situation with Ashton Stamps, second-year player starting at one quarter, and maybe P.J. Woodland, a true freshman, starting at the other corner. That's kind of where you are right now. And you'll get a Javian Toviano, who's probably going to have to play some and help you out a little bit. The J.K. Johnson kid from Ohio State is going to have to come in and play some. He's going to have to help you. Zy Alexander, who had the broken leg in the spring, I don't know exactly where he's going to be able to end up because you look at safety, and I think you're going to have Sage Ryan at strong. He gives you some coverage ability there. So over the slot, he can help. Played a little bit of corner last year, so it's not a big liability in that spot. Major Burns going to go to star, who kind of lacks your coverage ability, but he can be up closer to the line of scrimmage and kind of help with some things there. Maybe, a Jordan Gilbert at free, Jordan Allen some at free. I think there's still a chance to kind of move some pieces around. Corey Webster likes to play a lot of man free. I do think that at least you have a couple of guys, specifically Burns and Ryan, where they need to be now. You can move forward with that. So what is there to like about the defense? Well, one, I think you're going to have better coaching all across the board. I think you're going to have a system that is, I think it's more favorable for college football players. That's the only real way I know how to say it. Because what do we see all the time in college football, right? We see these gimmicks, okay? So the turnover trash can or the turnover plank or the touchdown belt or the touchdown throne or the explosive play, joystick or the turnover makeup kit, whatever the hell you want, and put all that bullshit in there. But kids love it. They like it. The sack cell phone. I don't know what the hell they do, but the dog pads, whatever, spike shoulder pads that they have, the kids love it. They get motivated. So when you can throw a defense on the board that says, hey, you don't have to sit still a whole lot. You're going to slant. You're going to attack. Your job is to put your face mask in this tackle's ear hole and try to knock his ass out. Kids love that. Like, that gets people going. It gets the juices flowing. It gets you ready to play. You get a linebacker that says, hey, guess what? You're going to run through the A and B gap probably 11 or 12 times this game. Fucking let's go. Guys want that. So less sitting in zone, less looking around, less trying to figure things out, more trying to knock the shit out of people. And I think they'll be motivated by that. It doesn't mean they'll be more talented. And I understand Mizzou had some NFL guys last year, but it hasn't always just been that way. Some of those guys came along when they were allowed to play this way, when they got into that system and into that scheme. And I do think sort of the racer linebacker has been there for Blake before. So Greg Penn going to have to kind of step up and maybe be that sort of a guy. But you also have Perkins there that can help out with that just a little bit. Weeks going to be able to help out with that some. It's just the lack of bigger bodies up front concerns me. Because if they can't eat some things up, then you're not going to have stuff for other guys to be able to run through. And I think you're still going to need edge pressure at any point, anytime, every day. And maybe you have a couple of guys going to be able to do that. I do think the defense is going to take a step. It's just you're taking a step from really bad to maybe average. And can your offense offset that? Now, if your offense goes more ground and pound like we talked about, maybe you can. Maybe you can sort of be that kind of a group. You know, it's going to be an interesting season. First game ever in the state of Nevada for LSU. First regular season meeting against Oklahoma. So, like, there's a lot of new, a lot of weird, a lot of different, but you get a bunch of games at night, advantage LSU, and you got a hell of a football coach leading the way in Brian Kelly. So, I think there's a lot of reason for optimism, but there are absolutely some pitfalls that are going to have to be avoided with defensive tackle depth, turnovers from the quarterback, and potentially a secondary not having to be moved around again and just being able to cover people. I mean, you saw guys being turned loose in the spring game. Like, that can't continue to happen. But I do think that there are more positives that outweigh the negatives of maybe what this season could be for LSU. I think they get off to a pretty good start. I think they got a great chance to get USC early. Then you get Nicholls at South Carolina in the morning. You're a better football team. You're more talented. You should get that one. UCLA, new head football coach, lost a bunch of dudes. South Alabama, lost their head coach, lost a bunch of dudes. And a week off before you get Ole Miss at home, flex game, probably going to be at night. Ramp the entire city up for that one and see what happens. So we'll see where LSU goes. It's going to be fun. SEC Media Days in about a month. We'll be there covering it. And look forward to hearing from you guys. Again, we appreciate the comments last week. We always want your feedback. Please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. Please go like, rate, review, and subscribe. Check us out on social, Twitter, Instagram, @Cube Show, and we'll be back next week. Happy Father's Day.